why should you listen to Project Hail Mary by Andy Weir? Well, to start off, I'm going to give you a brief overview of Project Hail Mary. This is all going to be spoiler-free, by the way, so don't worry if you haven't read the book.
What's going on in there? What?
That's the whole point of this video, to get you to listen to this audiobook. So let's start off with, what is Project Hail Mary? Project Hail Mary is a near-future sci-fi where an alien microorganism is discovered in our solar system, and it is repopulating at an astounding rate. We're talking dire consequences here if this population is not brought under control. We follow a scientist named Ryland Grace and his plight of trying to save the Earth while making a groundbreaking scientific journey. So who's this book for? I would say definitely new sci-fi readers. If you haven't explored the sci-fi genre and you're just looking to jump into something completely new, this is definitely a great place to start. There aren't a lot of characters. The story is pretty easy to follow, and while there are a lot of scientific concepts talked about throughout the book, they're explained very thoroughly, and you're not going to get bogged down trying to look up a bunch of definitions and figure out what he's talking about. If anything is pretty complex scientific-wise, it is explained really thoroughly, and you're going to be able to grasp the concept at least enough to understand the story. I would also recommend this book to people interested in science or that are actually a part of the scientific community. Like I said before, a lot of scientific concepts are explored in this novel, and you get a little bit of that drama and political play that happens within the scientific community, you know, often with like new discoveries, people trying to claim credit, all that kind of stuff. You get a bit of that in the story as well. If you enjoy dad humor, you're really gonna like this story. The whole book is kind of coated in this layer of humor, very similar to The Martian, if you've read that or watched the movie, how there's kind of these jokey elements interspersed throughout the story. You get a lot of that as well. It's never too overbearing, but it's definitely like a corny type of humor. So if you're into that, if that kind of hits your funny bone, I would definitely say check this one out. I would recommend this to someone who's feeling bogged down with their reading and just want something a little bit more uplifting and engaging to kind of get them back into that reading stride. This definitely is a book that flies by while you're reading it, or in this case, listening to it. You can get really engrossed in the story and kind of just follow along very easily. And if you're feeling like the books you've been reading or listening to have been a slog recently, this will definitely break you out of that and give you kind of a renewed energy and want to read more books, perhaps in the sci-fi genre, or just reinvigorate you into reading in general. And then lastly, anyone that has a remote interest in sci-fi in general should read or listen to this book. Even if you feel like you've hit all the big stuff in sci-fi, you know, The Expanse, the Foundation series, all the big stuff, and you feel like there's nothing left for you, give this a try. While it might seem like a little bit of a simpler story for sci-fi, it still is really, really engaging, and it's a ton of fun to listen to. And also it explores some very interesting and unique science fiction concepts that are kind of fun to just tease your brain about, and leave you kind of exploring the concepts on your own even after you're finished reading the book. So why do I want you to listen to this book and not to read it? After all, it is a novel. Well, that is due to the outstanding audio narration by Ray Porter. I really cannot give this narration enough love. It is like insane. If you don't believe me and you're not sure if you want to pick up the book, just go like listen to the audio sample on like Audible or something, and just listen to how he just delivers his lines perfectly, and the inflections, the pacing, the tone, how he delivers jokes, and how he, you know, changes his voice to imitate different characters. It's just like, it's perfect all the way around. I can't say enough about it. And also, these dad jokes land a lot better when they're delivered with the correct cadence. I could see how if you were reading this book, some of the jokes just would not land how they do in the narration when they're delivered perfectly and with the right amount of sarcasm or the right tone. Another reason is characters are very easy to distinguish through narration. While there aren't like a ton of characters in this book, there are a lot of lengthy conversations going back and forth. And with the narration and the different inflections and accents that Ray Porter puts on, it makes it really easy to follow a conversation where it's more, you know, natural sounding to the ear with literally different voices than it would be just reading in the book where it's like he said, she said over and over. It makes the conversations flow a lot nicer. And I think without the audio narration, I would not have enjoyed this book nearly as much. Not to say it's not a good book on its own, but I definitely feel the humor would have fallen really flat for me if I wouldn't have been listening to it. Like I said, his delivery is just absolutely perfect, and I feel it would have been a bit cringy and kind of like eye rolling if I wouldn't have been listening to it, if I would just been reading this on the page and not hearing those, outstanding inflections through Ray Porter's voice. So let's break this book down a little bit. Let's talk about some of the elements of it. We're going to start with the characters, which I think is, if not one of the major strong points of the book. All the characters are very compelling. They're complex. They have satisfying arcs. Characters you meet throughout the book change as people as the book goes on, and you learn more about them. Very few of them are static throughout the whole book, and they each kind of get their own little moment. While it is mainly focused on the story of Grace, you do get an insight into a few of the other characters as well, but Grace is really explored as a character with genuine flaws, and how he grows as a person is shown in just an incredible way throughout this book. I found him to be one of the most compelling characters in sci-fi that I've ever read. It's hard to describe his exact arc without getting to spoilers, so I'm not going to spoil anything, but just know, Grace is a flawed character at the beginning of the book, and the way he works through this and ultimately becomes a better version of himself by the end is just executed flawlessly. And for those of you that have read it, the character Rocky is, of course, might be one of my favorite characters in sci-fi now. He is just so funny. All his jokes and tics are just perfect for his character. And again, Ray Porter's delivery of those jokes is just fantastic. And it really makes Rocky just a joy to listen to. And him and Grace's interactions are some of the best banter I've ever listened to. The overall story is really gripping and realistic. You really feel like this is something that could really happen. It feels like a real story. It feels like someone is almost telling you a story that they experience. It is really that compelling. And it's an expansive story as well. A lot happens in this book and is actually told in a very compelling way that keeps you engaged throughout the entire book. It's a very enjoyable book. Like I said, some of the jokes can be a bit eye-rolling at times, but Ray Porter's delivery definitely saves it. It's a story that keeps you engaged throughout the entire book. So you really want to see these characters succeed, and you feel disappointment when they fail, and you feel those highs and those lows, and you get pumped up when they succeed. And it's just a story that keeps you rooting for them the entire time. As far as pacing goes, I did find the pacing to be very well done. That is, until towards the end, it gets a little bit sluggish because they keep introducing new problems and new issues that the characters have to conquer. At a point where you feel like the story should be wrapping up, maybe we could have explored a bit more of the characters after the story was complete, rather than them having to deal with just a bunch of, I don't want to say minor problems because they are important, but a bunch of other problems towards the end of the story, when we could have actually been, focusing more on these characters and exploring, just what their lives went on to be, and just generally what went on to happen after the story. The story ends pretty much right when they solve the problem. It's pretty much done. There's not too much left, where I would have enjoyed a little bit more of a exploration of these characters after the story was complete. But like I said, pacing in general, very good. There is sort of an overarching mystery throughout the story that does keep you engaged to the very end. I think it's near pretty much the very end of the book where it's finally explained, and the explanation is satisfactory. You don't feel like you were let down by this huge mystery encompassing the whole story, and I was really glad to see that pay off in a satisfying way. This is a great example of world building. While it's not like, a fantasy where you have to build out entire kingdoms or continents that don't really exist, it is our Earth, but I do think this is a super realistic depiction of what could be achieved through a space program if we had complete international cooperation through pretty much the entire globe. And it's pretty much a realistic depiction of what would happen on Earth if the entire planet was put in mortal danger by some sort of extraterrestrial threat. So overall, my rating, I'm going to give Project Hail Mary an 8 out of 10, which, remember, on our scale is pretty much outstanding. Now, if I would have just read this book and not listened to it, it may have been closer to like a 6 or a 7, but again, with Ray Porter's narration, it was absolutely a joy to listen to, and I probably will go back and re-listen to this multiple times because of how fun it was to listen to and how much I want to hear these characters speak and interact and hear their different inflections. It just makes you want to come back and listen to more. So Project Hail Mary, go and check it out. I'm sure the paper version is great as well if you really don't want to listen to audiobooks or you don't have the time or it doesn't keep your attention. I'm sure the paper version is quite enjoyable as well, but I'm specifically recommending the audio version. I don't have a sponsorship or anything. Obviously, I got like 3 subscribers, but you know, if you sign up for Audible the first month, you're gonna get, I think right now it's like 2 months free. I think it's an Audible exclusive, so you can't like get it from a different audiobook source, but absolutely worth spending your free credit on. I think it's like 15 or 16 hours, so it's a lengthy book, so you're really gonna get a lot of bang for your buck there, and the pacing is so good, it makes it feel like it's like an 8-hour story. You can really fly through this book without realizing it. Check out Project Hail Mary. That's about it for me, guys. See you next time.